My name is Diego Fernandez. I'm a Teach Now candidate. I have been teaching for 4 years now, and I'm currently working at the International Community School of Abidjan, and I'm teaching Mandarin and Spanish in high school, so 9 through 12.
My name is Penny Blackwell. This is my 10th year teaching. I'm also at the International Community School in Abidjan, and I teach high school math.
So Penny is going to be my mentor for the clinical practice. And today I just want to give her a brief introduction of what I'm going to do and talk a little bit about how the grading rubric is going to work during the clinical practice. So first of all, the unit that I'm about to start is called There Are 5 People in My Family. So we're going to talk basically about people, about family members, how do you describe your family members, and the way to introduce all this topic about people, by doing a lesson on asking, how are you? Where we will basically learn different ways to ask about state of mind or mood, and different ways to respond. So we're going to talk about degree, adjective, etc. So the standards that I'm going to assess in this first week at least are going to be students will demonstrate an understanding of Chinese culture, and they will compare their native and Chinese culture, reinforce and expand their knowledge of other disciplines. And the reason why I'm going to focus on this one is because there are huge differences in the kind of questions you ask people. One of them is, for example, you say, have you eaten? As a way to ask, how are you? So we'll have several conversations that are related to culture. And the other one is students will understand and respond to visual, written, or spoken information in Chinese language. So basically communicating feelings, state of mind, mood, and talking about those essential questions that we use when we talk to people in general on a daily basis. So the first lesson I'm going to teach is called How Are You? And the objectives are, I can answer simple questions that Chinese people use on a daily basis to ask about each other's well-being. The other one is I can formulate questions using the Zenma question particle, so that's very specific to Chinese language. I can distinguish the difference in degree of the different adjectives used to describe my mood or state of mind. And the other one is I can formulate yes/no questions using the question particle ma, again, very specific to Chinese, to ask about each other's well-being. Do you have any questions in regards to content of this first week, or any comments about that?
No, I think those are very clear, and you've obviously put some effort into those, so I'm excited to see your lesson.
Thank you. Okay, so they want us to talk about routines, and I've been already teaching for 4 years, so I have really established routines already that I almost do by heart. I don't know even how to say that. So, but basically to describe what you will see in my classroom every day, when you come in, you will always see on my board the objective. It's always written there, and there's always a plan with numbers, so the kids know, this is what's going to happen first, second, last, and I usually give them a time frame, which we never really flexible. Yeah, that's always flexible. Every single class we have an activity, so I will have kids moving or participating, playing, competing against each other, because we have really long classes, so that's
a good way to break it up.
Yeah, and it's also smooth, to transition from one thing to the other one. You will also see a lot of small group work, and the reason why I do this is because some of my students have special needs. And I already know their learning profile, so I know, this person is really good for writing, this other person is better, speaking. Mm-hmm. So you will see that when we work in small groups. And for this particular lesson, the culminating task, it's to do a comic book, a video, or an audio recording using those questions that we're gonna learn how to ask, and using those adjectives. So basically asking people, how are you, how are you today, how's your mom, how's your dad. And I decided to give them those three options: comic book, video, or audio recording, because it depends on what they like, what they feel more comfortable with.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
You have any comments or questions about that?
No, I'm excited to see those as well.
Okay, so for the rubric, about Teach Now's rubric, for the first and second week, these are going to be the guiding questions or the standards that we're going to focus on. So the first one is, how does the candidate use knowledge about students' growth and development to design and implement developmentally appropriate and challenging learning experiences? So what would you expect to see in my classroom in regards to that specific standard?
I think my question would be, how do you gauge where they're at as far as where you start a lesson from? Math is super easy because I can just do a pre-test to see, are you ready to actually start this chapter or not? Do you do any kind of pre-assessments? Because to me this unit seems very oral, where the students are going to have to be comfortable. And tonal languages is a lot different than their native language now that they have. So have you done activities prior to this in which you have assessed their willingness to discuss with one another and to actually speak verbally?
So this is a really good question, actually, because what I've realized as I've been teaching these different units is that when I taught the numbered unit, some of them were really good at math, so they did awesome. Some others struggled a little bit. So it changes every lesson, and we always start by learning the vocabulary. So once I know that they know the words, then we can start, building sentences, building more complex grammar structures. So what I usually do is just games, like very informal, formative assessments. And then the other guiding question is going to be, how does the candidate use knowledge about individual differences and diverse cultures to develop inclusive learning environments that support all students in meeting high standards? So what would you expect to see in regards to this question? Because, we're in an international school, so...
Yeah, and I think that you've already addressed this in your objectives as far as having them identify the different cultures and to compare and contrast within their own culture and the Chinese culture. And you already talked about your small group instruction with your students with special needs. So I feel like you're already on the path to achieving that guiding question. Maybe after your first lesson, we can look at that and make sure that it's very clear, since that'll be our second week goal. So we can take our first week observations and see how that goes and make sure we're hitting that. But it sounds from what you're saying and your standards that you've already outlined that you've already been thinking about that as you're planning your lesson.
Okay, thank you so much, Penny.
You're welcome.